Hey everyone, Ariel Adams here with the aBlogtoWatch Superlative Podcast. Please listen to our other podcast, aBlogtoWatch Weekly. My guests today are Sam Rayner and Max Nordigian of Chrono Hunter. Guys, welcome.
Thank you very much for having us.
So let's first discuss what Chrono Hunter is. Then we can discuss a little bit about what you do and some things going on in the market and stuff like that. You are one of many, I'll call them contemporary companies that attempt to fill certain gaps in the market that help what I call the last mile problem, which is helping people to get a watch and in some instances sell a watch. But that's just a little bit of introduction. In your guys' word, what is Chrono Hunter all about?
Yeah, so I'll give you a bit of background to sort of what prompted us to start the company, and then sort of a brief description on the company. It's very, very straightforward. So we help customers, private individuals that are looking to buy or sell luxury watches, get the best deal from reputable retailers. So we're an online platform. People come to us, they give us the details of the watch they're looking to buy or sell. We'll tell them, we'll give them an estimate on what their watch is likely to be worth or within a range, or what their budget needs to be. And then we'll go out and get them the best deals, and we're working on their behalf to do that. And the reason why we set up the company was going back to sort of pre-2017 when we first started. We looked at the market. We're both luxury watch enthusiasts personally, and we had some experiences of me personally with another friend of mine who was selling a watch, who unfortunately got defrauded whilst trying to sell online privately, and that's unfortunately a common case. It's heavily targeted by criminals, and then sort of Max was sort of well connected, and people were asking him sort of all about his watches. How can I get one of those? Do you know anyone who'd be interested in purchasing this watch? So he was already connecting parties to retailers, and we never had a desire to be a retailer as such, but we like putting, two people together and making sure everyone's getting a good deal.
Max, what would you add to that?
Yeah, so as Sam said there, we knew there was a gap in the market. We tested it out by ringing up to see if we could get a Submariner that day using different platforms, saying, we'd like to buy it for a birthday present that day. We'll come pick it up in an hour, and 8 out of 10 couldn't do that for us. So we knew that it wasn't live data. With Chrono Hunter, you get offers on the watch to buy or sell, and it's live, and you can transact there and then. We've had watches go live, and the deal's done in the same day. So we knew there was a gap in the market. As Sam touched on, my background was in London real estate. A lot of people liked watches. It was a common conversation, and I was linking watch retailers to customers just by a phone call. As Sam said, we didn't really want to be stocking watches, or we didn't have the knowledge of the movements and everything like that. So we were like, hold on a minute. Well, there's a lot of people we're working with at the moment. Why don't we expand on that and put that on a platform? So that's what we did. And that's where we are now. We've transacted over £45 million worth of watches. We've got thousands of 5-star reviews. So the idea has come to life. It was not an easy battle starting. You'd ring up new retailers and inform them that you're going to sell them a watch, or can they buy this watch from one of your customers? Who are you? Is the answer we got quite often. But once we start building a reputation and people knew who we were, it all starts moving. But it was a hard battle at the start. Don't get me wrong.
It's interesting when you think about what we celebrate in much of the timepiece industry. It's things that are slow. It's slow to build a good brand. It's slow to design a watch. It should be slow to build a watch. Watch shouldn't run slow, but you should be able to enjoy it slowly over your life. Yet when it comes to buying one, many people want it to happen right away and fast. And it seems that really is where Chrono Hunter offers a service, which is you want something, and you could probably do it yourself, but it'd be a pain. It would take a long time. Maybe you'd never get around to it. These guys can help you do it right away. And as you said, oftentimes the same day.
Yeah, and just to touch on that, there's a lot of watches which aren't marketed. Say a watch has come into one of our retailers and it's going through the service department. We get a customer looking to buy that watch. The they'll still make an offer through Chrono Hunter to say, look, this watch has just come in. It'll be, it'll be available for you to pick up in 3-4 days, but it's just going through our service. So there's a lot of watches which transact but don't actually hit the market. And that's the same with people selling watches. We get a lot of people selling watches through us where if a retailer already has the customer for it, they can afford to, pay the end user a bit more money to get the watch transacted because they know they've already sold it. So we're creating best value for the customer as well. So there's some niches like that where we do a lot of business which you wouldn't normally see.
Yeah, I think the speed. Sorry to interrupt. On the speed side of things, it's very important for a customer to get not just a fast transaction, but ensure they're getting a fair deal as well. Because often customers don't want to feel that, all right, the transaction was fast, but could I have got a better deal elsewhere? I can give you a great example of that. We had a customer with a Patek Philippe 5711 with a Tiffany stamped dial some years back now. Our job is to give them an estimate of what that watch is likely to be worth. We decided that we would put the watch up with no price attached to it because we didn't want to limit what that might get. The customer said he wants to achieve £50,000. And we got him multiple offers, and the best of which was £90,000. So it was sort of almost double what he was looking to achieve. Had he walked into some retailers and said, I'm looking for £50,000, there would be some out there that would have shaken his hand at £50,000, and he would have left a lot of money on the table.
How does Chrono Hunter make money?
So we charge a fee for a transaction. So we're incentivized if you're selling your watch to get you the most money in your pocket because that also creates revenue for the company.
So the person who's doing the selling, whether it's a dealer or a consumer selling a watch to you, that's where you pick up the money. The buyer is not paying an extra amount.
Correct.
And how did you land exactly on that? And, how do you determine if the fees are competitive? Because it seems to me that there's a lot of variation, right? But you can't charge different amounts for different watches. So I guess the question is, how do you come up on one price that fits a whole range of situations?
Well, we obviously built the company. At the start, there was a small fee just to get going, just to show, that we do what we did. And we've built the fee up so we're competitive. We're not the most expensive, but, at the end of the day, it's a business and it needs to cover its running costs. We spend a hell of a lot of money with staff, advertising, technology, and we've placed ourselves where we believe you're getting a lot of value for the money you're paying.
And I know that a lot of watch consumers are notoriously difficult with price, even if they're buying a luxury item. What are some of the things people say about the cost of doing business? Because I know oftentimes people are more than happy to pay for good service. Talk a little bit about, how the customer feels about the fact that they are paying for the service. Do they actually see it as a human service?
Sure. Everyone who has done business with us, once they've transacted, they can definitely see the added value. If you're selling a watch, you get multiple offers from our different retailers. So you can see that you're getting best value for your watch. If you're
so you get to see all that stuff. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. So say you're selling a watch for $10,000, dollars, and you get one offer at 9, one offer at 9.5, and you get one at 9.8, and then you get another one at 9.8. At 9.8, you're really top of the market. So what you're seeing there is you're seeing the true value of the watch you're selling. So that's really where we create our value. And also our retailers who work with us know that we've vetted the client and the watch beforehand. So it really, they give best value there and then because we've done the work up front. Because there's a lot of people who want to sell their watch and it's unfortunately double what the market is. They won't go live on the system because it's a waste of their time and our time and the retailers. So everyone's been vetted. So the retailer really does put their best foot forward. And that's where we create the value. And we also do a lot of business with these retailers. So we're confident that the transaction will happen smoothly.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like each watch on the platform is put there by a person. There's no automated process. Everything seems to be vetted. Or am I wrong? Is there an automated part of it?
No, so we're very hands-on. If you're looking to sell a watch, you get a phone call from us. We want to make sure that you do own the watch. You want to make sure that we can give as much information to our retailers. We want to inform them on the process. We have a lot of automation in the background, which is helping us price the watches using our data, which speeds the process up for our sales individuals. But it is a very hands-on one-to-one process, which our customers enjoy.
I've been thinking about this a lot lately because, we've talked a lot about eBay, which I'd say is sort of one extreme of the market in terms of use of technology. And then there's lots of people that, they just barely have a website. Really, it's just them and like an Excel sheet, right? So you have this huge spectrum between the two. And some people really can't stomach the fact that there's automated processes out there because they hate the idea that there's ever anything that slips through, any fake, any stolen watch. They hate the idea that the marketplaces aren't like just perfectly sterile all the time. And then the other end, if you have nothing to help you, then you have like the smallest inventory ever, right? Because in addition to the limitation of human time, you'll have bias. You'll have like, nobody wants to buy that. Just because you don't like it doesn't mean other people don't, right? So it's interesting to think about that sweet spot, but I actually fundamentally feel that it's probably less expensive to do what you're doing, which is sort of a blend where you have some, we'll call them data sources in the background, but a human should be behind every single one because that seems to be a very cheap way of eliminating fraud, right?
I think there's two sides of it. Obviously, the human touch, you can really make sure it's correct every time. But then also, when you're selling a high-end watch, it's also nice to speak to someone and have the conversation and educate someone on why the market's changed or what's going on. And I think we also get a lot of repeat business because of that. What we also, going back to what you're talking about, the different spectrum of retailers, we work with some retailers who are massive and there's a lot of automation. And then we also work with some family business where there may be one or two people with their Excel sheet who also do a lot of business with two of them. So we do work with a broad spectrum of retailers. But as long as they pass our vetting, they can work with us. We're not biased to the large ones or the small ones. To be honest, they all have their uses for different watches. So that's what makes Chrono Hunter great. We had one customer sell his tag on the same day. He enjoyed the process so much. Next minute, he's selling his Patek Philippe for more than $100,000. Two totally different retailers, but the same service.
Crime has been, for better or worse, a very big topic when it comes to watches in the mainstream, whether it's a corrupt person in their expensive watch or criminals selling watches, criminals stealing watches. There was a sort of high profile case of a apparent reseller here in Los Angeles. And like random people I talked to, like, oh, in the Los Angeles Times, they read about this guy that was like defrauding people on watches, like people that would never have watches on their radar at all. I guess I have two elements to this question that I'm leading. One is talk about some of the things that you guys have to do on the back end to prevent fraud. And then second, which I guess is the second topic, is the discussion of watches and crime something that leads people to your type of platform? Meaning, does that make people concerned and not want to do it themselves? Just talk about how that may have an effect on your business.
So yes, it is a topic of the world we're in. Unfortunately, it's not as nice as we would all like it to be. What we do is before a retailer comes on board on Chrono Hunter, we obviously check their background or trading history on their company. We also check their leases on their shops or any assets they've got. And then we also have a referral scheme where retailers who we've already been working with have to basically give them a check to say that we know who they are, we've dealt with them before in the trade, and they're happy to work with them. So we try every angle to get going and make sure that we're happy to do that. Also, we on their first transactions for a handful of times is we hold the money beforehand to make sure that that it can't go wrong. If we're holding the money and they've got the watch, we will then release it once everyone's happy.
That makes sense. Sam, what would you add to that?
Yeah, I'd say, from the customer side, Max has touched on the retailer side, we do have a vetting process there where we have a conversation. We make sure that this customer's coming across as genuine. You will find, if someone was to submit a fake watch on the platform, to us, 9 times out of 10, they won't pick up the phone. So if we can't get them on the phone, their watch will never go live on the platform. And then so there is that personal aspect that filters through some of the inquiries that maybe are questionable. And then where, further from that, when the transaction's going through, we'll have the ID, we'll have the KYC from the customer, proof of identification, proof of address, so that, and again, 9 times out of 10, if there's an issue, touch wood, rarely happens, they wouldn't provide that sort of information if they were trying to, deceive in any way. So we have quite a very good filtering process. So then when the transaction does go through, it's a high conversion rate, and there's low, there's very rarely any issues when it comes to these sort of problems.
I think it's interesting because a lot of people believe that technology can be there to assist with fraud prevention, when the reality is there's no one technique. It's this layering of protective processes, each of which is not ironclad, but you hope that applying like a variety of filters means that most of the bad apples get, sifted out. And then if worst case scenario, something happens, yes, there's insurance or you have to pay out of pocket, but you hope that those situations are so rare because you've had all those other protections in place. And as far as I can tell, yes, the nature of those filters and those processes are obviously protected secrets that everyone has. But that's, in a nutshell, what companies like yours have to do to protect yourself from what could be really serious problems.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah. Well, Sam and I are process driven. So we have, even if something feels wrong, it normally is. And then we will start different processes to filter that out, to push out any problems. And at the end of the day, if something doesn't feel right, just don't do it. It's very simple. Everyone's very keen to help and assist people, but if something's not right, unfortunately, we can't help that customer.
Does that happen a lot? I mean, it's good that you reject it and you can see it easily, but how often is an unscrupulous character coming your way?
It's not as much as you think, because I think people realize quite quickly that they're speaking to a human being when they contact Chrono Hunter. It's not just going to go through automatically.
Right.
So I think it does get squashed quite early because I think there's a lot of easier places to sell a watch without all the information and questions you're going to get from us. But we're here to do it one way, and that's our way, and that's the right way.
And what about the second question, which has to do with the cultural significance of the safety issue around watches, and that stimulating purchase behavior, stimulating selling behavior? I'm just wondering, from your perspective, how are people responding to this type of news? And I think some of them are probably good ways, because actually all awareness is good awareness.
I think it's natural human sort of feeling is to want to protect yourself. That's why you've got safes, you've got home security systems, you've got a lot of, it's just human nature to want to protect yourself from from these sort of scenarios. So I think from that, the awareness is definitely there, and becoming more of what the potential pitfalls are when selling privately. We don't facilitate private to private transactions because we know that there's a huge amount of potential pitfalls. And it can even be unknowing. We've had a customer looking to sell a watch where it was a real watch. The case was real, the bracelet was real, but the movement was fake. And they'd been sold that unknowingly because they'd purchased that from a private individual who perhaps even purchased it from someone else who didn't know sort of what they needed to do to check the watch. So, what I'm getting to is we don't facilitate the private to private because we know that there's a huge amount of pitfalls. The retailers we work with, they all have their processes of, running it through the lost and stolen register, doing the checks on the movement, the checks on the watch, everything that needs to be done to make sure they're happy with their purchase, which a private individual might not do. But just sort of going back to sort of what you mentioned on sort of the the safety side of things, I think that definitely does help us as a business, because for anyone who values their having a smooth transaction, their safety, and sort of over squeezing the most value out of the watch they're looking to sell, would choose our service over selling privately for sure.
Max, do you want to add anything about that?
No, I agree with Sam. We do get a lot of people who have come to us and have tried to sell elsewhere and been messed around. We will put them on the platform and they'll get the offers. They might not be what they want because they've been trying to get this crazy price and people have been messing them around. We will put it up for what we believe is a fair value and present their offers to them in a short period of time. They've got a handful of offers they can choose, and once they've gone through the process, it's quite an interesting conversation afterwards. Why didn't we come here in the first place? But it's a newer concept than just putting something for sale online. So it does take time for people to understand it. But what we do get is a lot of referrals from friends and families who have used us, and which is great to see.
So it sounds like it's a good system for watches that a dealer might immediately know if they can move and want to make an offer on right away. It sounds like it might take more time, and I'd like to hear more about the process for watches that are perfectly good, but might simply take longer before someone who wants them discovers it. And that's normal with more niche products. It's not they're any worse. It's just there aren't as much demand, and therefore there isn't someone looking necessarily the day it's listed. What is your process like for those watches that are great and they're going to find a buyer, but you're not going to necessarily get a whole list of offers the same day?
So what we've done for that is we have a real spread of retailers. We have retailers that only deal with Rolexes, the ones that move daily, and they just do lots of them. We have retailers who deal with vintage watches. We have retailers who deal with all different types of watches, but there are watches which are not in high demand. What happens is the process is still the same. The watch goes live on the platform, but instead of it taking 24 hours, it could take a week, it could take 2 weeks. It all comes down to that watch being needed by a retailer. So I'd be lying to say every watch happens in 24 hours. That's not the truth. There are watches that will be on the platform for a week or two before they get an offer because supply and demand from the retailers.
Do you have sort of these lists that just sort of exist, and it's like somebody wants to sell this, they're not in a rush, they know it's going to be a while before there's a buyer? Is there stuff that just sort of sits around for a long time like that? Is that a good or bad thing for your platform? I'm just curious because I know that there's a lot of people with watches like that out there, and very few of them know what to do.
Look, our job is to get the watch sold for the best value for the customer. So if it doesn't sell, we're not doing our job. If we don't present offers to the retailers, to the customer, we're not doing our job. So our job is to get offers to assist the customer to sell their watch. But there are watches, don't get me wrong, which don't move as quick as the daily Submariners.
So you try to move them. You actually put a little effort behind it. You call people up and be like, "Hey,
we're
guys,
on the phone.
we got
the
this
phones
thing."
are ringing 24/7. We're speaking to them. We can also look at our last purchase history from different retailers to say, actually, they bought a similar watch. Let's give them a call. Make sure they've seen it. We're definitely making it work.
Now, how big is the network of dealers? Chrono Hunter is based in the UK, and there's, of course, a lot of, we'll call them headaches in moving watches across certain borders, some more than others. But how big is the sort of network? And of course, it's not necessarily all connected, but what parts of the world are we'll call them the dealers who work with located in? So
we are predominantly in the UK at the moment. We have a handful of retailers in Europe who we are working with, and we are expanding that slowly. And we are getting a lot of traffic right now from the US. So we are starting to dip our toe in the US at the moment because we see that as a big market for us.
What's that like, sending a watch from the UK to the US and vice versa? Is that hard right now?
So we're not currently doing that because of the taxes. We've got retailers retailers who we're starting to work with in the US to work with our customers. To buy
the watches from them. Okay, so for you, it doesn't really matter where they are when they work with you. What matters is where the watch has to move, right? So you're in the UK, someone from the US can more than easily use your platform. And what you're going to try to do is hook them up with a dealer to buy that who's also in the US.
Yeah, we've got over 100 retailers we work with in the UK at the moment. Some of them we do sort of sporadic business with. Some of them we do regular business with. I'll say there's probably 30 we do transactions pretty much daily with. We have sort of, when we set up, we've had a various amount of things that have happened in the world. So we had Brexit to start off with, then we had COVID, then we had pending war and all this sort of stuff. So there's been different things that happened. When we initially started out, we had a lot of...
What do we call the era of the UK right now? Does it have a name?
I have no idea.
Imagine. Not that I'd probably could say on here, but now we've got a new government as well. So people ask us what a normal year is, and we don't know yet. It's we haven't had one. But look, all I can say is we've gone strength to strength each year, even with all these unknowns happening. So something must be going the right direction. But going back to what you were saying with the US market, obviously that's a big market we'd like to start working with, and we're starting to get a lot of organic traffic from there as well. We do a lot of articles and a lot of PR and marketing, and it's starting to pay off.
So the core value proposition, just to understand correctly, is finding this niche between pure peer-to-peer sales things, where like an eBay could be a good peer-to-peer thing, even though there's plenty of dealers there. And, I guess a store. You guys don't have to have inventory, but you speak to the people who have the inventory, and then you speak to the people that want to buy something. And like a internet spider, you're able to connect elements on those web that otherwise might not know about one another. And again, it seems to me that that's the focal point of the service you're offering.
Correct. Yeah. All in a safe manner, all in a way that makes it smooth for a customer and creates best value, because the retailers know they're competing against their other retailers. So they have to put their best foot forward on their offer day one, or they don't get the business. So it does create that competitive environment.
One of the things I've noticed from talking to folks like you and many others in the industry over the years is how each of these little jobs are very, very different. It's so rare for people to do multiple of these things at the same time. And in this instance, I think what I mean by that is the having inventory, buying watches, being able to keep it, maybe even having a store environment. That's one business. Finding customers that don't just come to you, working with them, that's almost another thing entirely. We watch brands, we see this, they try to do everything. They try to act so proud of themselves, how vertically integrated they are. Yet they can't sell watches. They can't market watches. At the end of the day, a good brand is really only able to make watches. So it's interesting to me how retailers in these days, even though we live in a very different economy, they still think they can do everything. And I try to explain to people, having a physical store means that just people walking and driving by see you. But when you're on the internet, unless there's a road to you, no one's going to you. And you guys, in a sense, provide that type of road.
Correct. That's quite funny you say that. We were speaking to one of our retailers, and he'd grown his business 25% from last year because of us. And he was very happy to say that. Bearing in mind, they're a small team of, I think, 3 of them. When there's a larger team at Chrono Hunter working on their behalf, it's not something he could go and, employ another 10 people. His business wouldn't work. So when we are bringing direct business to them, they love it. It's great. So as you said, they're very happy to not outsource it, but we're partners of ours.
If there could be more dealers out there who were buying watches, what could they be like? What I mean is, there's certain businesses that you like to deal with. There's certain ones that you feel are great for your ecosystem. Describe them, and how might the market change so that more of them could exist? I'm just wondering how you can envision an increase in the number of businesses you can bring under your fold.
it's very simple. You want to deal with people who are knowledgeable, who understand the market, who understand the watches, and also are fair. These are used watches. If they come in, they need some work being done to them. We believe that it should be a fair price. If there's a chip on the bezel, it does need fixing. But we want to deal with people who want to do business for the long term, not for the short term. So we believe that if we have a really good working relationship with these people, where they're here to help their customers, who are our customers as well, and we can grow together. Those are the people who we do a lot of business with, because we create a lot of trust together.
Sam, what would you say?
Yeah, just to add to that, I would say just transparency is very, very important in any business, and a business that's happy to play to its strength and work with others. Companies that have given us an opportunity to work with them when we've presented ourselves and the service we offer are, I would like to say, glad they've done so, because we've helped their business grow, and we play to our strength, which is providing the service we do, and we have no intention of buying and selling watches. There's a lot of customers that come through that are looking to sell watches, and we see that, all right, they want a price that we could make a profit on if we were a watch dealer, but we're not, so we don't do that. We put it on our platform, we present it to the retailers, and they purchase the watch. So we're playing our part in the business, and then on the transparency side of things, that's just really important, because like you touched on, with a watch that might sit around for a while, a retailer might come in with a lower offer than what a customer might want, but they would say, look, this watch might sit in our cabinet for a year. We have to insure it. We have to market the watch, and it's cost of capital, because our money's going to sit in that watch for a long period of time, because it's not a fast mover. And I think if that sort of explanation is given to a customer, they're more willing to transact than someone just gives an offer and says, well, that's what it is, without giving a full understanding of why it is what it is. So I think transparency is very, very important.
Would you say that you help move a lot of transactions that wouldn't otherwise happen? Because my suspicion is that you lubricate a lot of processes that may just never happen, meaning a lot of people might not ever buy, a lot of people might never sell if it wasn't for you, encouraging along that process.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think where we see our added value is, which we can talk about the watches we've transacted to our customers in the last week. We can tell them the live data of, we actually sold a similar watch for this much money last week, and that's a good value. We are working on behalf of that customer to create best value for their watch. We're not the ones buying it, and we also see where for the retailer, let's say a customer was selling a watch and it had a damaged link or missing a link. And there was a price change on it because it's not how it's described. We can speak to the customer, inform them to buy a new link is the fair price they're saying is they're offering a reduction of, because we do know the price of the links, and it's a fair price. So we are in the middle, and we are working for both sides. Obviously, if something's not fair, we're not going to agree to it, of course.
One of the things I'm very convinced of is that watch brands themselves, who do like to sell, who have their own stores, that would love to own the relation with the customer, I feel very confident in saying that they'll never be able to do this as good as you or another outfit like you. Like, for them, selling becomes quite robotic or awkward. And it's sort of interesting that no matter how much they want to do it, they won't fundamentally be able to. Maybe because they're too emotionally involved or invested in the product and the brand, and they're like, no, I could not possibly sell this brand short, or, I must have allegiance to the brand and not the customer. But what is your reaction when I say that brands will just, for whatever reason, never be able to do this type of job as well as you, despite their best effort?
I think why I think it could happen one day is because we are a closed platform. We are not sharing prices all over the internet of the price the watch is sold for. So say a larger brand had a lot of stock sitting around, as we know they do, and they would like to sell them maybe a little bit cheaper than the retail price. I believe we could do that at Chrono Hunter because our prices are not public prices. It's all on a closed platform. So I think it might not happen overnight, but I think there is an angle there definitely to work with the retailers.
So you're talking about wanting to be an avenue for closeout because you don't have to publish the prices.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. That's different than what I asked, but that's actually a very salient point and good to know. Brands work directly with you, but I guess it's more the culture of dealing with the customer. The customer expects a certain level of service, and I have another follow-up question after this. But again, when they deal with brands, what I hear from customers is that they don't feel as good as after working with someone like you, where they feel they went on a little journey with you.
I think it's very scripted.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think, if you go to a store now, I think it's not personable anymore. I think it's just another number. It depends. Obviously, if you get the right salesperson in the store, it's great. It's a great experience. You're in the store, it's all lovely fitted out, and you're buying a new watch, but you can't sell the watch there. That's the problem as well. We get a lot of people who want to buy the new watch, but they also want to sell the watch at the same time. So there is that sticking point.
I think also, with shops where they have multiple brands, it works as a way where people progress, and they like a certain watch, they buy it, they enjoy it, they then speak to the same person they spoke to, they might get introduced to another brand, and work their way up that. I think with some, especially some of the higher end brands, I think they would miss out on a huge amount of business by, if they were trying to sell directly. Because they wouldn't have that interaction with the customer through, other entry-level brands that they would have coming through sort of a company that's focused on selling different watches.
So here's the follow-up, and this is really diving deep into the consumer psychology. And again, this is just focusing some questions that I've been asking myself and exploring. And that is, and again, it's not going to be every customer, but what do you think generally is more important to a customer? Spending a price point that they want to spend or getting that model that they want? What's more important, the price point or that model?
I believe it's the model they want, right? I've been in a position before where I always wanted something and it wasn't about I wanted to have that model, right? If you can't afford it, that's something else, or you don't wish to spend that much money on it, but it's about getting what you want, right? Then I believe obviously it should be a fair price in the market.
Okay.
Because you want to make sure what you're buying is the correct watch, because you've got to enjoy it every day.
Okay. Sam, what do you think?
Yeah, and I think, especially when it comes to the pre-owned watches, because you can have the same watch that's in two very, very different conditions. One could be totally over-polished, round edges, and it's, might have no box, no papers. You don't know the provenance of it. And then you can have on the other end of the scale, you can have one that's, immaculate condition, box papers, and it's perfect. And then sort of that's going to massively reflect in the price. So I think what we see is more often the customer will come, they'll look at the watch and the model first and exactly right, that's what I want, rather than saying, right, I've got this amount of money to spend, what should I spend it on? That sort of thing.
That's very interesting. Thank you. Well, when there is an individual who says, you know what, I want to reward myself and spend $10,000 on a watch. What do you do with someone like that? I mean, obviously you can direct them in a variety of places. You start to ask them what they like. I'm just wondering how you approach a situation like that.
Sure, that does happen. We get people who've got their bonus through and they don't know, they like the idea of a watch, but don't know what they like. So we will send them some options through. We'll send them, do you want a leather strap, steel strap, gold? Do you want stainless steel? We talk it through them and make sure we get the watch that they desire. So we had it where someone did want a watch for, I think it was about £10,000, and he wasn't sure if he wanted the rubber strap or the steel strap. Lucky enough, the shop that the retailer that had both. So he went and tried them on, and off he went. I think he went with the steel one. So you've got to, make sure you like what you're buying. At the end of the day, it's important. If you're buying a watch, to enjoy it.
Well, it's the difference between being sort of a mere trader and then also being a stylist or even a psychologist. And it's a big responsibility. I mean, it sounds silly, but someone is trusting you to spend a lot of money and they ultimately want to make themselves happy. Your job now becomes making them happy as opposed to finding something that they wanted. And again, being more of a trader, it's again a completely different type of job that you have to know how to handle.
Definitely. Look, it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen every day. 95% of people know exactly what they want, or they'll come in to say, I want this watch. I've seen this watch. We'll go, actually, so that's not stainless steel, that's white gold. And then you might inform them a bit more, but they normally know the look of the watch or a reference.
Sam, you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say that we would ask a number of questions to the customer. Talk them through what the different what we see other customers purchasing who might be in a similar position, and then we would ask the question of a lot of people say, I'm buying a watch, I never intend to sell this watch. And then our advice would be, look, just go for exactly what you want. And then there's also a large amount of the sort of the watch buyers out there that are focused on whether it will retain value. So we can also, not that we have a crystal ball, but we can look at the history, and what the resale value is compared to what the retail value is. And we can advise them on that as well and say, look, these sort of brands and these sort of models tend to hold their value a bit better than others. So you may want to consider this if there's if that's important to you, because it's not important to everyone.
I found it very interesting that you mentioned 95% of the people who approach you or you come to the platform know what they want. And that's a big number. I'm wondering, is that representative of the market in general, or does that have something to do with the way you market and acquire customers?
I think it's both, but I also believe now with the power of social media, if you're looking for watches, funny enough, it will come up on your social media, and you can start, looking at. There's so much information online now. It's not like you have to have a catalog to look through watches. You can find anything you like online. So, if someone's looking to buy a watch, we have an option where you can put in a link to the watch you like, so it's the exact one, or you can add a photo in. So we normally have quite a bit of information before we get going, which the customers found. It could be a link to Instagram, it could be a link to the Rolex website, it could be anything. So we really try and get as much information from day one so we could get going and help the customer out.
I was just going to add to that. I believe it could be the way that we're set up as well, because our form and the way our business is set up is like, right, once you know what you want, tell us, give us that information and we'll go out and find you the best deals and the best opportunities available to purchase that watch. We'll present the customer with various options. There might be different years of that same watch. There might, it'll be a range so they can look and compare and go, well, if I want something a bit cheaper, then I can get one that's a little bit older. It's still the same watch, might be a different movement, and they can compare and make a decision from that. We do also know, however, that customers do love to browse, and that will be our next iteration, Chrono Hunter 2.0, where we're going to connect with our retailers' stock. We will allow, customers can come to us, they can browse through all the inventory for the retailers that we work with, because people like doing that. And once they've sort of found the watch they want, that's when our process will kick in. So they'll go, yeah, this is the one I want. They'll click the button, we'll get the information, and we'll present them with multiple offers for that watch, including the one that, would be our retailer's stock if that's still available. If it's not available, they might have another one, or, another retailer might have the same watch they can offer them. But that's sort of when our process will kick in.
That's an interesting new feature. I'm curious, was the impetus for that something that the dealers wanted or something that you believe the consumer wanted?
We believe
both.
Yeah, we believe the consumer want it, because a lot of people we're speaking to come to the website and go, where are all the watches? I want to have a look around. So that does come up often. But then on the retailer side, we're also getting a kick from them saying, yeah, look, guys, you're presenting us with a lot of stock here. We're buying watches regularly. Can you help us sell some more? So we're getting that push from a lot of the retailers we're working with to present them with, another out for the watches they have available to sell.
So here's the question. If Max's dream comes true and the brands start knocking on your door and being like, hey, we got some closeout guys, how would you combine the discretion or the price discretion, which is necessary in those transactions, with having those inventories? Because brands may not even want you to list that stuff. So I'm just curious strategically. And
sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Too eager to answer the question.
Yeah, you have it all planned out.
Yeah, so there wouldn't be any pricing on these watches because it's moving so much, and we want to give the customer the live price that day. Okay. So the process would still work the same as a customer selling a watch, buying a watch now, but it would be a smoother process because they'll be able to just click on the watch they've seen and liked, and that will then start the process off. So there will not be any pricing on the watch. So it's still behind closed doors. So if we were dealing with the retailers or someone that didn't want their watches listed, they're not going to see any pricing. So it's all done behind closed doors in the same way it's done now. But this is just a smoother way of someone saying, that's the watch I've seen. I'll click on that and I'll get some prices on there. Because not everyone knows the reference numbers. So it's just to smooth out the process to make it smoother for the customer. Sorry.
I actually think it's going to be a good next several years for you guys, and one of the reasons I mentioned that is because I think that the retailer is going to have more, not less importance. I know that there's been a big trend over the last several years of direct to consumer and brands having their own boutiques and stuff like that. But my suspicion is that in times like we are right now, where it's harder to sell, they're going to shift reliance back onto third-party retailers because it's a less risky proposition because, they're the ones investing in the inventory and the stores, whatever those look like. And as you know, they always need extra help when it comes to offloading something or selling something or whatever it is. So do you agree that a more amounts of watches going to retailers actually just helps your business?
Yeah, I mean, look, we think that would definitely help, the more available stock. I think, it's like you say, there's been a bit, the trend sort of recently would be direct to consumer, but I think that's possibly been driven by the fact that there's a lot of watches that sold like hotcakes during the COVID period. And that sort of come to its end now. And like you say, that, it would be a more sensible approach to include the retailers more and let them have the stock and let them build the relationship, do what they do best almost. And I think that would be good for us as well. So I think whether it be working direct with the retailer, the brand direct with the retailer, I think we could work in both scenarios. But I think with the retailers, it's very good.
I have, it's almost like a joke with my team a little bit, and I'm semi-serious about it, but I have like in my mind like a countdown clock for when Audemars Piguet goes back to wholesale. Like I feel that it's inevitable. They made such a big deal about ending wholesale, but like I truly feel that we're not that far off from them being like, well, maybe a little bit of wholesale. So I see there being a shift. Let's just put it, that's my prediction.
Look, the market has shifted dramatically. So you can't just, as a business, you can't just stay still. The world doesn't work like that. You have to go with the times and you have to be nimble and move with it. It's very simple.
Yeah, you're really spelling what watch brands are good at: nimble and moving with the times.
Yeah, I know. Look, we're proud that we're nimble. We get in a room, we agree something, and we move forward. We test, but we have to. We're a small, young company with big ambitions. You can't just take 6 months to agree something. The year's gone.
Oh, I guess I'm laughing about is because you guys, many other teams, myself, we all have this moment, and hopefully it lasts a long time, where you get into the watch industry and like, you know what? I'm going to speed up all these people, right? I'm going to show them how it's done. I'm going to like get it doing a little faster. And at some point, we're all humbled. We all contribute to pushing things along a little bit, for sure. But it's so many people have a phase where they're like, I'm the one who's going to do it fast. I'm going to show them how slow they're being. And let's put it this way. They know how slow they're being, and boy, do they like it. Mm-hmm. So it is this funny contrast, but you're right. There is an inherent struggle between how slow some of these brands inherently want to work and how fast the market actually does operate. And just the last year, the market has had so many personalities, right? Like it has been a shifting, dramatic soap opera. I mean, how would you describe the last year of the watch market?
Interesting.
There you go.
Look, you know, we went through the COVID times where, you know, I've never seen watches go up in value as they did. It was crazy. You know, people were buying watches and a week later they were worth more money. So then everyone became, in the UK, a watch retailer. That was an interesting time. And then, you know, the world has changed dramatically in the last 2 years. With interest rates, the world, what's happening around the world, and it's affected the watch prices. And what it has done, I believe, is probably cleaned up the market a little bit, where there was people doing it on the side and probably not very well. Well, funny enough, I don't think they're probably doing that right now because it's a lot more work to earn the same money. So I think it's good and bad. Look, I don't want anyone to lose money, put it that way. But I think it did sort of clean up the market.
Yeah, I think recent times,
Sam, what are your thoughts?
You know, awareness of the watch industry, I think it's come on a long way in the recent years. You know, I remember when, you know, I know it's not a huge amount of time, but when we started sort of back in 2017, you could wear certain watches and nobody would know what it is. You know, now you can't wear anything without someone who might not even be into watches or watch enthusiast. They'll know what you're wearing on your wrist. You know, you've got like the Omega, with their this moon swatch, which brought a lot of the younger generation, I think, sort of interested in watches. You know, you've got people who might have got into the market with an intention of, just making a profit on a watch, but then they've actually got interested, you know, and start looking at other brands, and that sort of has prompted more people to come into this market. So I think it's been interesting, and I do think it's been positive. I do agree with you that things don't move fast in all areas of the business, but I think we're focused on doing what we can do to push that forward. And it's just looking at the pre-owned market. There was a point not so long ago where some of the bigger brands just wouldn't even touch a pre-owned watch. It was like, grey market. No, we don't do that. And then sort of we've got the big brands like Watches of Switzerland, Boucheron. They all do pre-owned watches now, or certified, pre-owned.
It sounds better with the word certified, right?
Yeah.
I love the marketing behind it. It's amazing. So as we discussed in sort of our own ways, with the normalization of the market happening, meaning you don't buy a watch and it goes up in value, that's cleaned out a lot of the weird people in there and the, as you said, weekend dealers and things like that. It was a mess for a while. And I agree that it's a more stable and probably better place to do business. With that said, there's been a lot of negative media. And if you don't carefully read the news or understand it, and I read a lot, whatever comes across my way, and I'll be able to look at it, with a lot of critical thinking skills, more so than the average person, it kind of sounds like the watch market is just in a terrible place. The reality is it's not. It's just that all those quasi-investors out there are no longer able to do so, which we all knew was a problem. The question is, how are the consumers picking this up? They're not as sophisticated as I am or you guys are. They're not really understanding how to separate all these different things. It just sounds to them like the watch industry is doing bad. What types of things do they bring up in conversations, and what type of responses do you give?
I think we're hyper-focused on it because it's our industry. So we know a lot of what's going on. A lot of times someone just wants to buy the watch they've always wanted to buy, and enjoy it, right? So as long as they're getting a good service and they're happy with the purchase of their watch.
So they're not reading any of that stuff. They don't care about the industry.
I'll be lying. They know that the market has changed, but people are looking at that. We had a customer looking to buy Olive Day. Well, it was half the price of what it was when he first looked 2 years ago. And he's like, perfect. I'm happy to buy now. So, look, we'll be lying to say if people don't know that market's come off. Of course it has. But people don't really mention it too much. They obviously mention it if they've bought at the time where it's now the watch is worth less money. But other than that, this business as usual.
Okay, so it's actually not really that big of a deal. People aren't thinking about it. They still like watches. They still feel it's going to be a good experience. Yeah,
look, that's all still there. But obviously the customers what we had where we're buying a Daytona for the wrist and a Daytona for the safe and for the investment, that's definitely slowed down.
Which is probably a good thing. Those Daytonas deserve to be on people's wrists, right?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it was just mad times. It was just mad times. We all went through, you know. I had people who have never mentioned watches to me in my life ask me about reference numbers, you know, during this period of time. You know, I'm going, sorry, you know, it was, you know, it is what it is. But I think it's all calmed down now, and it's back to normal, I would say.
Sam, what would you say?
Yeah, I would say it's definitely back to normal. You know, we know that the cost of everything's going up year over year. You know, the rate, you've always got inflation, but it's not, you know, it was never really prior to the madness we had for a couple of years. It was also always a case of, you know, I'll just buy this watch because I like it. You know, I'm going to wear it. You know, I know personally, I bought a watch sort of many years ago now, and I had no idea. I sort of think back and go, right, I literally bought this watch because I looked in the window and I liked the look of it, and I went in there and I negotiated on the price a bit and I purchased it and I moved on. Right, and now I almost know too much information that it affects my ability to purchase a watch that I like, because I'm sort of reading too much into the economics of the watch industry. But there's still a huge amount of people out there that literally just buying watches because they like them and nothing more than that. And they're not really consuming the news around the industry that we are.
I mean, look, it's an interesting thing for me because I'm picking up news in a financial publication or something that's not an enthusiast watch publication. And they're writing about the watch industry. And the only data they seem to have are these wonky reports that have data from weird places, or the prices of pre-owned watches that were all inflated to begin with. And then they use that limited amount of data to draw very broad conclusions about the watch industry in general, which is not responsible at all. You don't see them talking about car auctions that way, right? They're not like, oh, Ferraris aren't selling for as much. Like, they don't seem to care. So it's just very strange to me. And I'm wondering the manifestations of this coverage. It's financial news coverage about a massively narrow slice of the watch industry, which is meant to somehow suggest how the entire watch industry is doing in a lot of instances. At least I think that's how certain people take it away. I don't think this is going to happen forever, but anyone who has a business in selling watches, buying watches, is probably affected by that somehow. So I'm just explaining why I'm bringing it up.
It can't be good. Of course it can't. If someone's using, there's platforms where you can list your watch for as much money as you want. It's not held back by anyone. So you can always find the data to make the story, I suppose. I think what you're saying there is, so it's not good for the market. Of course it isn't. I mean, but going into the car industry in the UK, their electric car market is, halved over a year. It's horrendous. They are writing about it, but maybe I'm picking up the watches more.
I guess we're almost out of time, and I think the final word I'll say is going back to the sort of macroeconomic environment. And again, maybe if I misunderstand, you can correct me, but it feels like you guys actually prevent inflation, right? By making sure that watches aren't sold for too little or too much, or listed for too much. You kind of make sure that the numbers make sense to other people's expectations. It actually sounds like you have this little microcosm of stability and not insanity, because all inflation is, oh my God, I can't believe they had the balls to ask that much for something. And someone is stupid enough to say, okay, right? And again, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like without trying, you're actually protecting against a lot of that nonsense.
Look, we know what the watches are selling for, so we won't be putting a steel Daytona up for $50,000 because it's a waste of time for the customer and our retailers. So we know what live prices are. We're always striving to get the best value, which you could probably say does create inflation, but that's what we're here to do. We're here to assist the community out there.
Yeah, and keep things moving. You know, the Chrono Hunter economy is well oiled and moving. You know, watches are being sold, watches are being bought. You know, we have no interest in watches being listed at prices they're not going to sell for. You know, so this is, you know, our economy is moving. We can't affect we can't control what we can't control. So, but we will, you know, we'll help customers understand the market, and we'll help retailers, you know, as much as we can. So that's what our job is to do.
The website is chronohunter.com. This is Sam and Max, the founders. Guys, anything else you want to promote? Any places on the internet where people can learn more about Chrono Hunter or you guys?
Well, no, it's just if you're looking to buy or sell a watch, come to Chrono Hunter and we'll give you an estimate, and hopefully we can help you with your purchase or your sale.
This has been a Superlative Podcast interview with Sam and Max of Chrono Hunter. Gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.